Now, Richard Zoltner, my work has touched Richard's on and off during the years. He was an assistant to Deming right there at the end of his life. Richard is probably the world's leading authority on applying various lean and theory of constraints methods together. And he said, you know, it's different. It's not just like the 1-minute manager or good to great. It's not something you can take a piece of here and a piece of there and apply and expect it to give you the full results. You have to understand the whole thing. And I think Richard is spot on. So what is a system in the Deming view? This is the best quote that I've found for that it is a set. Each of the words I've underlined here are significant. It's a set of parts. It's not just a collection. They integrate thoughts and actions of human beings to achieve. In other words, it's success-oriented, a collectively agreed upon purpose. Purpose is extremely important. Another quote, every organization is a system. It takes inputs and it produces outputs for customers. And Dr. Russell Ackoff was a tremendously regarded management theorist. And he said that the East is learning what we know about science faster than we're learning what they know about systems. And I think that's true. I think I've actually seen, in general, things go backwards in the last 10 years in industry in that regard. But thinking in terms of systems is the key to having big gains. You move from org charts to interconnected networks of interdependence. You'll see some themes. You're already, I'm sure, seeing some themes, for instance, of Agile here. If you don't have a system, it doesn't matter what tools you use. This is very interesting because I know in the States we tend to be very tools-oriented. You know, we'll grab just the latest tool outside of any context. And everybody that sells a tool sells it the same way, you know, that the tool will solve your problems. No, the tool doesn't solve the problems. The system view solves the problems. The tools give you leverage to help you solve the problems efficiently. So they're saying, for instance, how many of y'all have seen control charts before? Anybody seen these kind of charts before? Raise hands. Okay, so I kind of have an idea. All right. Well, the idea here is that any kind of goal that you have, that you're trying to achieve, if it can be numerically quantified, you can draw that as a value on this axis. And then generally 3 sigma, 3 standard deviations off, that value is what we call an upper control limit, at least when you first start. That's pretty wide. And 3 standard deviations lower is called the lower limit. And the idea is you make measurements as you execute your process. And you can do this with software development. There's been some work in that area. And when you see a measurement come in outside of the control limits, you know that something has gone terribly wrong. And you react to that in a certain way. Well, that's been widely used in other industries. But what this quote is saying is that it hasn't been very effective when there isn't a systems view to begin with. Okay. So our goal is to have stable, sustainable systems. In other words, our business is to be in control, to do what they're supposed to do, and to be able to last, for us to be able to stay in business for long periods of time. So what does it mean to say a system is sustainable? Well, it knows what it's doing, and I've correlated these to elements of profound knowledge. It knows its purpose. It knows why it exists very consciously, intentionally. Constantly seeks to achieve its purpose. It has to do with the variation and controlling variation. It adapts quickly when its purpose is not being met. And of course, that's theory of knowledge. Deming himself said that all 4 parts of profound knowledge are essential, that they are interdependent, and that profound knowledge itself is the cure for sub-optimization, which is what we end up doing so often, isn't it? We settle for less than what we really wanted to see, but we do so because we really don't know how to do any better. This gets us out of that trap. So then you can say in those terms that lean is the application of profound knowledge to the system of business, including both development and production, to yield results that are optimized, that are truly the best that you can possibly do, for the greatest benefit of everyone, not just of the project or the project manager or the CEO of the company, or the things that we tend to sub-optimize on. It's ethical. It's profoundly ethical because it's based on win-win outcomes for human beings. I mean, that's really why we do business, isn't it? It's not because business has some inherent value in and of itself. It's because it brings benefit to those who conduct the business. It brings benefit to those that the business serves. So lean is a philosophy of work and a map for implementation. The 5 principles of lean that I discussed in my book came out of James Womack's Lean Thinking, which was his follow-on book to The Machine That Changed the World, and has been now generally adopted in the West. I think most of you are familiar with these, but the idea is, number one, that you're customer-oriented or stakeholder-oriented, which may not be just your customer, by the way. It can be the public, it can be the government, regulatory agencies, it can be other parties within the company. There's a lot of different types of stakeholders. Depends on the particular situation. Value stream, you minimize the entropy of the design. The idea here is that the most perfect your system ever is the day that you conceive of it. It's like Plato's chair, right? It's perfect. Then when you go to build the chair, you muck it up. So all we can do as developers is muck up the perfection of the design. So our goal, one way to look at it, is or the perfection of the concept, our goal is to minimize the amount that we mess things up. And when you think of it that way, actually, it leads you to some different kinds of actions than you would do if you were just thinking in terms of, oh, well, I have this set of requirements, I'm going to implement it. You're trying to avoid allowing the concept to degrade. Idea of flow is basically improving the efficiency of the production process. Pull, it means you're working only based on the needs of the customer, so everything that you do is value added. And perfection is that you get it right from the start or you fix it fast, one or the other. And by adopting these principles, we get to learn some lessons from other industries because they're doing the same thing. So we get very interesting analogies when we do that. Unfortunately, not all lean is lean because we have a situation where we take parts of what Deming talked about or parts of what Toyota did and we implement them and then we call it lean. And in the worst case, actually, I've seen management attach to the lean terminology and use it as the reason for layoffs, redundancies. Needless to say, that doesn't endear the idea of lean to the vast number of people that don't know what lean's about. But it has absolutely nothing to do with lean. I mean, Toyota's had a history of not laying off workers. I don't know if, I think now that they've had one, but throughout most of their history, they never laid off workers at all because that's part of the people first idea. So, but we pull out things like Six Sigma. You probably hear that phrase, right? Well, we use that as just a statistical technique. It has no context, no system understanding behind it. Many people now are starting to pull the idea of Kanban out of lean or out of the Toyota production system and use it in isolation. It's a good technique, but it doesn't make something lean. So it's just good to keep that in mind when you hear the word lean used.